It's Spoilerin time, ladies and gentlemen, and others. I don't want to leave anyone out because it's our favorite time of the day. Set your clocks to Spoilerin. Brian Brushwood, that's what we're here to do.
I like that. It's like you got to have like there's one, there's two, and there's spoiler and a clock. That's the way it goes.
There's morning time, there's lunch time, there's coffee time, and Spoilerin time.
Hey, man, so what do you want to jump in with first here?
Let's start off with Twin Peaks because I hear tell that you've had a change in your experience of Twin Peaks of some flavor.
I have, man. As you know, I have committed to watching all of Twin Peaks, and so as a result, I find myself plowing forward, even though it is amazingly 1990s, and it is late 80s, 1990s as hell in the pacing of everything. However, this was the episode. Like, there's some episode where you turn a corner where all of a sudden you realize you're interested in this. You're invested in the characters. You care what they figure out. And this was the episode.
Which episode was it?
Episode 6 of season 1. And it wasn't any big thing. It was just a case.
Is this the one where they go undercover to One-Eye Jacks?
No. But they're building up to that. It's clear. Like, and to be honest, I suspect it's the fact that they haven't introduced another big thing that has me interested in it.
They find the location of Jacques Renault's cabin.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait. Was that? I think that was last episode? ? I don't know. I'm looking at you, and you and I are doing the same pose.
Well, here's the problem.
Both have the same...
Episode 6 is called Episode 5. So when you say Episode 6, I don't know if you mean Episode 7 that's called Episode 6, or Episode 6 that's called Episode 5.
Is that really what they do? That's amazing.
I don't know. Well, it's because Episode 1 is the pilot.
Got it. And then from there, they do name changes. Look, I'll say this much. The dude who is the husband, who looks like Bryan Cranston, is out from jail, and he announces that he intends to win back his girlfriend by being a good worker and washing dishes or whatever. Yeah. Hank, might as well. I'm just going to call him Bryan Cranston from now on. That might as well be his name.
Reminded me of Huey Lewis, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So, at any rate, he comes out. Audrey marches in and says, here's how it's going to go. You're going to put me in charge of new client acquisition, and I'm going to be in the advertising space or whatever. Or I'm going to tear my shirt off and I'm going to claim you attacked me and tried to rape me. And so we see her asserting herself.
This is episode 5.
Are you sure?
Which is the 6th episode.
Wait, it's called episode 5, but It's actually the 6th episode.
It also has an alternate title called Cooper's Dreams.
Oh, yes, it was definitely Cooper's Dreams is the title of the episode. Wow, this is bizarre. A quick note to anybody writing a series that's going to eventually, live for 30 years. Just name your episodes consistently starting right now. That would be a great thing. I'll tell you what, man, I got in. I got all the way in. I really dug it, and I'm going to keep on going forward at this point. I don't know that anything super transformative happened as far as the listening audience goes, but I mean, I dig everything I've seen.
So you're finally like, because there are a lot of characters, so anybody's going to take a long time to get to know these characters. But you're finally feeling like even if you don't know their names, you're starting to care enough about them. Audrey in particular for me really starts to feel like a better character around this time.
Yes,
because in the pilot episode, you kind of hate her. You're just like, you're just kind of a brat.
Well, and also
they humanize her so much more later.
Not just her, but also Josie. You start to see, humanized, and I don't know. Even the log lady. This is the first episode that you actually have a conversation with the log by way of the log lady. I don't know. I'm into it at this point.
I actually remember this episode the first time I ever saw it. Freaking out that the log lady was given lines because I was like, I thought she would just be set dressing throughout the entire series and just kind of wander on and go, my log says have some pie, and then walk off. But you actually find out, she's got a backstory. something traumatic happened to make her the log lady, and yet she's got some kind of mystical connection information slash something. So that's cool.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure I'll have more to report as I go through the series, but I mean, really not much to say at this point outside of like, at this point, this is when I feel like I'm over the hill and I'm downhill sliding really fast on snow.
Well, cool, man. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I hope that feeling sticks around, especially once you get through this season and into season 2, which it really is divided. A lot of people who liked it originally thought that season 2 went downhill fairly rapidly. Yeah. Other people say that it got so tightened up that even if the plot meandered a little bit, they just thought the execution was better in season 2. So I'll be curious which road you might end up taking.
Right on. Well, we'll find out, ?
I took a road through the land of the shield with episode 12, season 3, Rice Burner. This is the one where a Korean town gangster is committing crimes. I think he kills somebody, and Aceveda says, we need to catch this guy. It's important for my campaign. I need to show the Koreans that we can crack down. And so we're cooperating with the Korean unit. Farmington we're gonna loan out the strike team, right? So they send Vic in, and it just is a disaster. Because the community doesn't want to help the police. They don't trust the police. The guy runs out of the apartment complex because he's being helped by people in the community, but then shoots a machine gun at the cops and kills 2 children, which then causes the community to blame the cops because why were they messing with this guy in the first place?
Right.
Then the guy from Lost shows up.
Wait, which guy?
As the councilman, who's a friend of Aceveda's, Daniel Kim is the actor.
Oh shoot! Holy crap! The Korean guy from
He's
Lost.
the representative of the Korean community that's working with Captain Aceveda.
That's amazing! How did I not notice that?
They keep sending the strike team after the guy, and the guy's always one step ahead. Vic starts to take it out on a new confidential informant that he had cultivated in Koreatown, but it turns out it was Daniel Kim's character who was tipping him off because that's just not the way it's done. And so you have this cultural, face-off between Aceveda and Kim's character, over like, hey, well, your community does things differently as well. And Aceveda standing his ground, like, it doesn't matter. He killed children. You can't justify that. You can't justify protecting him.
Dude, that's amazing. So where would you rate this among the pantheon of S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes that you've seen so far?
It's hard. I don't know if it's better or worse than last week at all. It just feels like a continuation at this point. It feels like the story is cooking now because you also have the money train getting complicated.
Simmering in the background, right?
They pull the guy in who found the money that they had planted, and they think, oh, we're off the hook. They're celebrating, right? This guy's going to jail. He's got a record. Doesn't matter what he says. They're not going to believe him. And he just sticks to his story like, dude, I found it on the street. And so they have to let him go.
Wow.
Which means that now they're actually in more uncertain territory regarding the money train money. At the same time, there's a point when they think they're safe where Vic, realizing that he's going to have to come up with a lot of money to treat his daughter, who's also autistic. He already has one autistic son, and he drove off the therapist because the therapist was sleeping with his ex-wife or his wife. I guess they're not actually divorced. And so now he has to come up with money for a therapist for 2 kids, which is going to be extra expensive, asks the team, hey, and I thought this was interesting because it was really an insight into Vic Mackey's character. He doesn't steal it. He doesn't try to pressure them into giving it to him. He just comes and says, this is the situation. It's a crappy situation. I leave it to you guys. I'll respect whatever decision you make. And 2 of them, Shane, actually, the guy who has taken money before, is like, we should let Vic have it. And you don't know why. You think, well, maybe it's because he wants to curry favor with Vic, or maybe it's because he understands needing the money. But the other 2 say, no, that's too risky. We shouldn't do it. And they're right, and Vic knows it, but now there's a split in the strike team.
Man. There are things I want to say, but I'm not going to say because you haven't gotten to the part where I can say the things that I want to say. But I will say that I'm thrilled that you're enjoying the show so much, and I encourage everyone else to be watching it. The Shield is available on Amazon Prime.
Also, I'm happy to see Wims get a little love interest.
I will continue to not say things.
I knew. I did that on purpose because it's like this. The Shield doesn't do innocent liaisons. if that happens, they're like, well, especially when they cut to him in the shower with her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, they wouldn't show me this scene. It would just be a joke between her and Wag about how she's dating somebody, and we'd never see the guy again. So this is important, and I'm interested to see what happens.
It's a really good point. If you'd like to watch The Shield along with Tom, head on over to Amazon Prime, where all the episodes are available right now. But meanwhile, we're going to move on to talk about which?
High Maintenance.
High Maintenance on Vimeo. Vimeo's first original about a pot dealer in New York who goes around, has got regular clients, tries to help them out in addition to providing them with an illegal substance. I'm going to shut my mouth. I want to hear what you say about this first.
Yeah, a couple things people need to understand. Vimeo's original is actually funding a previously existing show. So there is a first season of High Maintenance that you can watch on Vimeo for free that you may or may not be able to find easily, but it's there. You can definitely find it. They got funding from Vimeo to do season 2, which definitely has an upgraded look. They got a little extra equipment. They probably took a little more time, brought a few more people in, and it shows. It's not that the content was bad in season 1. It just got an upgraded look. And you have to pay $1.99 to rent the episodes, which you then get access to for, I think it's a year.
Yes.
Or you can pay $7.99 to get all 6 episodes, so you don't have to pay each time you want to watch one. Although only 3 of the episodes are out now. So we both watched episode 1, which is not called episode 1 on IMDb, I noticed, but it's episode 1 on Vimeo, called Ruth.
Yeah, let me say this. First of all, I think it's astonishing that they would make their individual episodes available for a limited time. Like, you don't own them. You pay the full price of what we've come to.
You're renting them for what is normally full price. It is a little odd.
Right, correct. Like normally you buy them for $1.99 and then you watch them and then for the same $1.99 you just get a year's worth of access. By the way, I don't know if you can show it contextualized or whatever. We got some footage of there. Loved the way this thing opened. Loved everything about this series. Loved the story they told. Loved everything. I mean, there's nothing I did not like about this. It was as good, if not better, than YouTube originals or even Netflix originals.
I had a different path. I started hearing like pot dealer and moves in and out of the lives of his customers, and I was like, nah, not interested. Sounds like a hipster show, you know, or maybe kind of artsy. Maybe it's good. I don't know. Just not interested. Then I start watching it today, and it got a funny scene at the beginning, which we were just showing there in the video of the kickboxing class and the guy there, and I'm just like, okay, this seems different than I expected, but it just feels like it's going to be like, here are the hipster people in their hipster lives in Brooklyn, and the troubles they have. Oh, he can't get a date. And I'm just like, this is just not the show for me. Also, because I wish I could enjoy pot the way people in this show do,
sure.
But it doesn't affect me that way. It makes me paranoid. So I associate it with being nervous. So I'm already like, I'm just not into it. Like,
you're nervous even watching it. You're like, oh, the cops watching me watch this. I don't know how to feel, guys.
Basically, I'm thinking, no judgment. It looks like it's a good show, just not my thing, right? So I keep watching, and they set up the date, and I'm like, all right, I like the guy. I'm like, I kind of like this guy because he's not your typical male lead in this kind of story. He's got a different story, and they have that really interesting part where the guy's singing, about living alone, the Irving Berlin song.
Sure.
And I'm like, all right. And then they go on the date, and they have a hilarious date, and it's not like overly hipstery hilarious date. They're just having a normal date. And I'm like, now this is starting to feel like Transparent, where the idea is that it's a show about a trans parent, right? Hence the name. Yep. But the show really isn't about that. That's just the background story that gets you in. And the show's about all these other lives. And I'm like, I get it now. This show is not about a pot dealer. The pot dealer is just the guy that introduces you to these people, and it's their stories. And these stories are told really real. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm starting to like this. I like the reality. These feel like real conversations that I have, not like stylized, idealized hipster life stories. And then the chili incident.
Okay. Now, is this a thumbs up or a thumbs down moment for you? Because for
hilarious.
me, okay, good. Because you called me. I didn't realize you hadn't gotten to that point. You called me in the middle of it,
and if
I was
knowing that you found it so hilarious could have undermined it for me, but it didn't. I was just oh my god, I can't believe they went there.
You called me, and I was cackling in the middle of that, and I assumed you had already seen it, so I was like, anyway, I'm watching blank happen. He's dipping his blank in the blank. And I'm like, oh my God. And then you just rolled with it. You're like, well, that's great. So I guess we're doing
you said something about milk and balls. And I'm like, I don't know what that's going to mean. Right. And even to the point where he's in the bathroom, like, I'm having a problem with my eyes. I'm not associating it with anything you said.
Right.
Yet.
Right. Let me tell you, man, it was utterly adorable. No, I'm not going to quite put it on the same footing as Transparent, because I think Transparent is truly if you'll forgive the double use of a transcendent show of 2014. It may be the
certainly
best,
a more ambitious show than this is.
Yes, yeah. I would say, and to be honest, I can't think. Let me put it this way: I can't think of a better show that came out in 2014 than Transparent. Can you?
Well, I have to think back to all the stuff that came out in 2014, but
and by the way, I'm using clever marketing phrasing by saying can't think of one better than, because essentially what you're saying is that it's tied for first. Like,
yeah,
I
was going to say something mushy mouth like that myself, like just to be safe. Like, it certainly is at or near the top.
Yes, exactly. Well, and then that's
because there's Game of Thrones and stuff, and we watched True Detective for the first time and Fargo for the first time.
Actually,
and that didn't come out.
All of those are tied. There's nothing better than Transparent. And I gotta say, man, like, this felt very close to that. I'm not gonna say it's as good as Transparent, but holy crap, did I love it, man! Oh man, did I feel good about spending $1.99 in order to watch this 20-minute episode.
Here's the thing, though. I wanted to watch a second one, but I didn't necessarily sure I wanted to pay $1.99 again.
Yep.
So I went to season 1 because partly I was like, okay, well, I know there's this other season. I want to see what it's like. And so I went and I watched the episode Jamie. Did you get a chance to watch it?
I watched a few seconds of it.
It's a lot shorter. It's like 7 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So I clicked on it and I got as far as like whatever the dispute was, where everything was melting down, and it felt very, very real. When they were freaking out about the mouse getting stuck on the glue, right?
Yes.
Okay. No, loved it. Loved it.
Yeah. So anyway, check it out, and maybe check out the first season, knowing that the second season will have a little higher value to it, and then decide if you want to pay $1.99.
Totally worth it. By the way, you can get the entire season for only $7.99. That gets you the whole season, which will cut like half the price.
6 episodes would normally cost you $12.
Who wants to pay $12? Am I right?
Or actually $11.94.
Yeah, $11.94. Who's got that laying around? Am I right? You want to pay $7.99, right?
So here's another story to tell my friends in the audience. I was talking with Mr. Brushwood today about things to watch, and here's the thing: like, we used to do Spoilerin time on After Frame Rate under a different name, and I just can't remember the name. I'm not trying to be coy. What do we call it? Spoiler Zone.
Doesn't matter. Right. Doesn't matter.
Anyway, we used to do it. And we do one show.
Sure.
So, it's to Brian's testament that he's like, well, we've only got 2 shows. We should double that. We should have 4 shows up.
Yes.
But I was like, well, I watched The Walking Dead. Do you have time to watch The Walking Dead? And I can hear the hesitation still in his voice. And I was like, look, our audience will be very excited if you watch The Walking Dead. Still not convinced that he would actually make time or find time.
I would like to point out that specifically you said The Walking Dead as if it was a joke. You're like, unless you want to watch The Walking Dead.
Right. I'm defending myself, right? I'm like, I know you probably don't want to watch it, but yeah.
Well, guess what, Tom?
What?
I watched The Walking Dead.
Oh my God!
season 5 and loved the first episode so much, I went plowing forward into the second episode as well. Holy cow, man. I honestly feel like I did better walking into it not knowing any of the background of season 4. Like I fell off. For those of you guys who don't know, like I gave up on The Walking Dead. It was too nonsense. It was too scattered. It was too whatever. And I was like, I'm done with this. I don't care anymore. But so many people have suggested season 5 of The Walking Dead to me that I jumped in. I didn't know who they were prisoners of. I didn't know what this place was. I didn't know what they were afraid of. But I do know that I loved the storytelling. The pacing was extraordinary. Moving on to the second episode, I like the second episode a little bit less, which is weird because I should like it more. And again, I'm going to say these words, but understand, I am not governed. I am a sovereign individual.
There is no governor.
I do not live and die by how close something exists relative to its source material. However, having said all that, it was really cool in the second episode to see elements and themes that I had seen played out in the comic books.
Yeah.
That's as much as I'll say about that. However, having said all of that, it was great. It was great. I think I'm back in. I loved the way they represented Carol. I loved the naked joy and love that we saw from Daryl when he saw Carol. I, as the father of a nearly 2-year-old girl, every second they put Judith on the screen, my heart melts, and it's difficult for me to watch. I understood.
I think that's why they've made the decision to keep Judith around, and I hope that's not too much of a spoiler to people who haven't read the comic books.
Okay, well, first of all, it's spoiler-in time, so I don't mind just telling people.
Well, but it's spoiler-in time for the TV show. You may not have signed up to be spoiled on the comics, but things are different, right? And one of the things that is different is there is a Judith in a church in Walking Dead this season, and I think that's having a baby around is a cool thing to try.
Well, and not just that, but it's
for the show. Obviously, it's a cool thing to try.
I'll say this much too. Having had a bit of a behind-the-scenes experience on the nature of television production, it was amazing to watch those scenes with Andrew Lincoln and whoever the baby is that plays Judith. There's enough there to tell me that they rolled cameras and they sort of gave space to just see what would happen. And there were moments that the baby would say or do things, and Andrew Lincoln, being a talented actor, would just roll with it and roll into whatever the next bit was that they were gonna do. It was really precious in that regard. It was really good. The whole thing I enjoyed an awful lot.
Now, I believe that the events leading up to... So what you saw in the first episode is them escaping from that place that they were at, right?
Yes, correct.
Which is actually season 5, episode 1. It's called Sanctuary. That's what it's called.
Right. Or no Sanctuary, I think is what it's called.
Well, yes, it is now No Sanctuary. Right. But the place was called Sanctuary before they got
Terminus.
Thank you.
That's what it was.
That's right. Leading up to that is season 4, if I'm getting this right. And frankly, I think season 4 is almost as good. I think they're getting better in season 5. And I'm not even suggesting you go back and watch season 4. I don't think you have to. But maybe someday, like if you keep watching Walking Dead and then it finally ends and there's no more Walking Dead, it might be worthwhile going back to watch season 4. No governor in there. You don't have to worry about that. But I'm curious what you like about season 5, because I say this because there are certain elements of season 5 that I'm liking that they started that kind of storytelling in season 4.
That's a good question. I'll say this much. I like the fact that there was no belaboring what has happened before. I like the fact that the villains are hypnotic and truly evil. Like that kid, the guy who, forgive me, I don't know his name because I don't know his name either. But basically his pragmatic approach to is like, why are you leaving me alive? I don't understand this. Why don't you just kill me? That would be so much easier for you. And like the genuine confusion on his face, like I'm just gonna screw with you. Why not just kill me? Like that was amazing, and especially that moment where he lurches forward and puts his spoiler alert, his hand on Judith's neck, and obviously all of that spoke to me very directly. And the follow up where he says to Tyrese, like, go outside. And you think that's a death sentence, but instead, suddenly all of the groaning ends, and then the guys, burst in on and killed. It was great. It was great. I don't know what's different. I would say that the pace, the storytelling, and my biggest beef with, understand, for those of you guys who are new to this, very storytelling, I've given up twice on The Walking Dead, and both times I've given up in the past have been because it just got totally random. There were characters that were doing things that made no sense. I didn't understand what I was supposed to empathize with them, and I just gave up. I was like, well, if you're not going to bother to make these sensible characters, then I'm not going to bother to follow them. That's not how I feel about this season. This season, it feels like there are grown-ups who are trying to tell a consistent story and give you a consistent set of rules so you don't drop everything. And by the way, again, not saying hooray, it's back to the comics. However, I will say, as being a fan of the comics, love what they're doing with the current theme. I guess I can go ahead and say it, right? The whole cannibalism theme that they're doing is straight out of the comics. I mean, if you
haven't watched episodes 1 and 2, then you shouldn't be listening. And
right.
This happens at the end of episode 2, the cannibalism theme.
Yes, correct. The cannibalism theme is straight out of, originally in the comic books, it was Dale instead of D'Angelo. I don't know what his name in this show is. But I had the same kind of harrowing moment as I realized that as I did in the comic book. And likewise, the other theme of the mistrust, the misunderstanding of exactly what could keep a priest alive with his faith, in this world. And there was something beautiful about that moment where he says, why don't you have any weapons? And he says, well, the Lord provides everything. He's like, he essentially says bullshit. And he's like, well, I needed help and you arrived, and it's like that kind of faith. I don't know, that really resonated, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. What do you think happened with Bob, right? Because why is he outside crying before the cannibals come?
Wait, Bob is which character again?
Bob is D'Angelo Barksdale.
Oh, got it. He'll be just D'Angelo to me. I don't know. I don't know that he knew. It didn't read to me like he knew anything. It just read to me like he had. To me, it read, and I may be totally wrong on this. To me, it read as though he is a human being who is facing the inhumanity of the human condition and just crumbled in that moment. Just
overwhelmed by it.
I mean, you keep in mind, you're talking to a guy who cried for 3 hours during Interstellar. So it's like, I don't know that I can, presume to come up with a reason for why D'Angelo Barksdale was crying.
Because Eileen and I had a long conversation about that after this episode aired originally, not long ago. And we were just like, okay, so what's going on with that? Is it just that? Is it just that he's overwhelmed by everything? It seemed like there was something more going on. So I was curious.
I would bet that you're right. But I also will admit that it didn't occur to me to second guess that motivation at that moment.
Now, did it surprise you that D'Angelo didn't recognize Cuddy?
You mean from Baltimore? You should have turned and be like, didn't you open a boxing ring in Baltimore once?
Yeah, I don't know if they really cross paths much, although Avon was a big customer.
That's true. Yeah. Good point. But I'll tell you this much.
I'm so excited that you enjoyed these, and there's like 4 more now, and there'll be another one next week. So I don't know if you'll catch up by next week, but I'm excited for you to catch up with me so we can start.
I'll try to, and I will say this much: high five and 100% validation on your pitching of it being worth watching. It really is worth watching, and it's back to being good. And I don't want to get in the business of trying to figure out exactly what was bad about it before, but I will say that I definitely have enjoyed the first 2 episodes orders of magnitude more than I enjoyed stuff in the second season. I thought the first season was great. Second season lost me. Tried to come back for the third season, lost me. Didn't even participate in the fourth season. And but now I'm back from what I've seen in the 5th season.
My guess of what happened is that when Darabont left, he had a plan that he had sent them off on. And the new people came in and said, I don't really like that plan. Let's move towards this plan. And they lost something in the transition, right? And it was just like, how do we get from here to there? And they had to go through a lot of painful writing to get them on that stage. What I like now, and what I liked in season 1, was that they are capturing the spirit. And some of it is because they're using elements of the comic. They are capturing the spirit of the comic, which is everything goes their way until it doesn't, and everything falls apart. And then everything goes their way, and everything doesn't until it falls apart. And Kirkman is just so brilliant in the comics of playing on your hopes to where you're like, maybe they'll win this time. Maybe they'll get out of it.
Well, and again, that's something
they can't, because they can't. But they found this way, so maybe they'll win this time. And I feel like he's able to finally do that in these last couple seasons.
That was definitely something that he made awesome about the comics. Was he would have this cruel streak where you'd think that everything was okay and then it wouldn't be. I will say, like, if you want to understand why I gave up, smarter people than me gave words to everything. If you just Google "your movie sucks" space The Walking Dead, you'll see a breakdown of seasons 1 and 2 that pretty much encapsulates why I left. However, having said all of that, it is awesome to be back on the train. I'm so excited to be back and watching. It's really, really good.
All right, well, that is it for Spoilerin' Time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. You are spoiled.
Jerk.